Your Worship, I want to talk about, I guess, to start with the Board of Revision.
Yes.
Okay, just a question. Did you talk about this discussion regarding what was happening in the Board of Division at a meeting of the Moose Jaw Chamber of Commerce?
Did I? What was your question?
Did you make any mention of that Board of Revision was under review, or the decision had been made at a meeting of the Moose Jaw Chamber of Commerce?
Oh yes, the Moose Jaw Chamber of Commerce had a meeting of local ratepayers and people who were concerned with assessment and have been involved in appealing their assessment. And yeah, I let it slip that we were going to be thinking about contracting that work out as opposed to having a Board of Revision. And then I, of course, realized that it had been through committee, but it hadn't been made public at City Council meeting. So I apologized for that comment. Yeah, I don't think any harm was done. I think that people were there to talk about their assessment, their appeals, and trying to understand the system better. And yeah, and unfortunately, I made a slip up. When
you say a slip up, and you said that in committee had been so this was discussed in camera then, before, prior to, and hadn't come to council, and you just let it slip at the council at the chamber meeting.
You know, I don't think I can tell you exactly where it was discussed and where it wasn't discussed. My recollection isn't that great that I can tell you when we discussed it, but I do know that it had not been part of a council meeting, so it had not been passed at council.
So it hadn't been publicly discussed then as well? Is that safe to say?
I'm sorry?
It hasn't been publicly discussed as well? Is that safe to say?
Well, I think I was here last June as a member of the Board of Revision and made a presentation to council along with the chairman at that time, Mr. Terry Gable. And there was some discussion that evening, I believe. I think it was probably about June 21. Where I think there was some discussion that evening about whether council would be, the city of Moose Jaw would be better to hire a consultant, a company to do the Board of Revision work, or whether it'd be better to form a Board of Revision from the community. So I think there's been discussions going on in the community for quite a few years about what are other communities doing. Do they have a Board of Revision? Are they contracting it out? Those kinds of issues have been out in public for quite a few years, I think.
Do you feel that those discussions then should have been in public and allowed the media in and others when you were discussing getting rid of the Board of Revision?
Well, these are big issues for the community. And what I was doing at that meeting was trying to understand more about how the community feels about assessment, their appearances in front of the board, their appeals to the Saskatchewan Municipal Board, and kind of how they view it. So I don't think there's been any behind closed doors drama to any of this. I think it's been an honest communication, an honest discussion within the community and within the council about how best to serve the citizens. Assessment's a bit of a mystery to most people, and so I joined the Board of Revision some years ago to try and understand it. I went to this public meeting to try and understand more about how the community felt about assessment. And now Council's made a decision to try the idea, and I think Councillor Eby referenced it. It's an idea, let's try it. Let's see if we can contract this service out, see if we get a better experience, review it. We can always go back to a Board of Revision if that's the choice of Council in the future.
Okay, when you talk about a better experience, are you talking about the Board of Revision, which is a quasi-judicial board deciding in your behavior because you've gone to this company?
I'm sorry?
Now, the Board of Revision is quasi-judicial. You're looking for a better experience. What do you mean by better experience? Outcomes in the city's on the city's behalf on a quasi-judicial board?
Well, the city of Moose Jaw and all cities have their assessment done by Saskatchewan Assessment Management Agency unless they choose to have their own assessment department. And then people that have been assessed and given their notice of assessment have an opportunity to appeal that assessment if they don't believe it's accurate or they believe that there's an error in it. So they go in front of a Board of Revision, which could be comprised of citizens of the community appointed by a council of the board, or it could be a company that's contracted to provide board revision services. They state their case of why they believe that the assessment that's been done by the Saskatchewan Assessment Agency is not correct. They try and point out errors, and then the Board of Revision, whether it be a group of community volunteers or it be a contracted group, makes a decision. Was the assessment done correctly, or has the appellant successfully shown an error? Then the decision is written up and provided all parties. And if either party, the Saskatchewan Assessment Management Agency or the citizen that's appealing, believes that they don't agree with the decision, then they have the right to take that to the Saskatchewan Municipal Board. And I think there was a suggestion by the city manager tonight that let's try a contractor and see if we can reduce the amount of files that go to the Saskatchewan Municipal Board. Because each and every time that we're representing at the Saskatchewan Municipal Board, there's a cost to that as well. And so it's a work in progress. We're trying to do things to improve the process for the city and for the citizens of Moose Jaw.
So you're not looking for a decision more favorable to the city than coming back from the new Board of Revision by contracting?
Well, the Saskatchewan Assessment Management Agency is contracted with the City of Moose Jaw to do assessment. And so people that appeal are appealing the assessment that Sam has done. The city doesn't have anything to do with that. But the city does bear some of the cost of defending those decisions, and we've had a budget for that.
I just looked at the cost, and it was cheaper with the volunteers than it is with this company, and I just can't understand it. Why dump the volunteers?
Are you talking about the operating costs or the appeal costs?
The Board of Revision, the operating costs.
Yeah, the Board of Revision operating costs it's suggested that had we used this contracted company last year, that it would have cost more than the Board of Revision cost was, which is comprised of community volunteers paid an honorarium. Then there's a suggestion, perhaps, some of the extra cost of having a contractor do it will save us some money in terms of the number of appeals that go to the Saskatchewan Municipal Board. So we'll just follow it through and see what seems to work the best, and this is the decision for this year. And you know, as I said, we're not certain which way works better, but we do know that the Board of Revision was basically one chair and one writer in the most recent year because of the lack of experience in other members. So what we've done is we've done some recruiting. We got some very qualified people, but they didn't have the experience yet to do that chairperson's role and doing those decision making and writing decisions. So this is an opportunity to try it a different way and see if it works better.
Okay, thank you.